afternoon and good evening to everybody joining us here today. We're going to give it a couple of minutes to have everybody stream in. It's so nice to see so many of you, and it's really nice to see so many of you with your cameras on. It isn't very often that we get to meet all of our educator friends from around the world. So it's great to see all of you. We'll just give it a couple of seconds as people are still streaming in. While we're waiting for everybody to join us, why don't you put down in the chat where you're joining us today from and what the weather is like for you. I'm joining you all from Bangalore, where I have just moved this week, and the weather here is a very balmy 30 degrees. So let me know where you're joining us from in the chat now. Okay, let's see who's here with us today. We have Visim from Tunisia, Ostra from Lithuania. Hello, Revati from my backyard in Bangalore. We've got some folks joining us from the Middle East, Jordan, Turkey. Megan joining us from Yokohama in Japan. Hi, Megan. We've got a lot of folks from the Southeast Asia region, Singapore, Pakistan, Macedonia, where it's about to rain. That's lovely, Weka. We've also got some folks from up north in Europe, Norway, streaming sunshine, which I'm sure is a welcome change, Jeremy, for Norway. Hello to Teresa, who's joining us from Prague and having a lovely day. All right, that's great. Let's keep the chat active as everybody streams in. I can see lots of you joining us from all parts of the world, and I'm extremely excited to have so many wonderful educators joining us from different corners. So this is promising to be a very exciting session with lots of interesting insights and inputs. Okay, great. So as we get started, let me introduce you to today's session host, Nadia Abdallah. With over 15 years of teaching and coaching experience, Nadia has held positions at various IB schools in different capacities. She's been an IB language and literature teacher. She's been an MYP coordinator and has most recently been the K-12 Director of Teaching and Learning, as well as the chair of CIS committees and the head of the English department as well. Nadia is also an experienced IB workshop leader and examiner, and she's a team visitor for CIS as well. And she's a very well-published author as well, so you might want to look up her articles online as well. In today's session, Nadia is going to be walking us over the basics of the MYP ATL framework, and then she's going to dive into how you can align ATL skills with your MYP unit planner for your individual subject groups as well. Over the course of today's session, Nadia will also be sharing lots of resources for ATL skill development, which she's created herself with us at Toddle, as well as those by other MYP thought leaders. So you can keep an eye out in the chat as well. You'll find all of these resources and lots more on learn.toddleapp.com. If you want to receive monthly updates about what's new on Toddle Learn and keep an eye out on upcoming events, newly released resources, please make sure to subscribe to Toddle's monthly newsletter, which is called the Learning Lemonade. And the link for that is in the chat for all of you right now. Okay, there you go. All right, a little note about Toddle and the collaborators for today's ATL Skills Meetup. The MYP ATL Skills Meetup is, of course, a community initiative, as always, by Toddle. Toddle is an all-in-one teaching learning platform for schools following the IB or the UBT curriculum framework, and it's already used by over 30,000 educators around the world. Toddle empowers teachers in the MYP to work collaboratively, to design assessments, unit plans, create reports, and communicate with families. All of this from one beautiful, intuitive interface. If you'd like to learn more about how Toddle can support MYP implementation at your school, please make sure you book a demo with the Toddle team today. The link for booking a demo is in your chat now. Okay, that's it for links for right now. Let me quickly walk you over a couple of housekeeping points for this session. In today's session, we'd love for you to keep your videos on. There's going to be a lot of talking, a lot of chatting. So let's get to see one another and get to know one another a little bit better. At various times today, Nadia will ask you to pause and reflect. And we also will encourage you to use the chat for different prompts and polls. So please make sure to do that. While you're typing in the chat box, just be mindful that you've selected everyone so that you're not just sending out your messages to one person. We will also be using breakout rooms during this session today with Nadia. So please join your breakout room whenever you are assigned to one. This session, of course, is developed independently from and is not endorsed by the IB. As a final note, let's make sure to share today's learning on social media. So if you're having fun, if you're learning new things, make sure you use the hashtag Toddle Meetup on your social media and tag us using @Toddle_edu on Twitter and @ToddleApp on Instagram, and let all of your friends and all of your colleagues know that you're having great conversations with Nadia at today's session. All right, so on that note, I am going to hand over the session to Nadia. Nadia, over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Pallavi, for that wonderful introduction. So you know a little bit about my background. I think I breathe and live the IB. I love it. I love every element of it. Just to give you a quick rundown, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at the framework. We're going to be looking at something generic and then something a bit more subject specific. And throughout the session, we're also going to be sharing with you all of the new resources that Toddle has created. So just, you know, let's get started. I think it's very important that we know the terminology. So just by looking at the screen, you can tell that the framework has categories and clusters, and then also strands. We look at this generically, and then we dig deep into it when creating subject-specific unit planners. So obviously we have 5 categories, we have subclusters, and then we have strands. Toddle has created an amazing Excel sheet that we'll be posting later on that has everything that you need in one place. Okay. So it's very important that the ATL is at the heart and soul of the MYP unit planner, because it is a critical part of the planner, and it is the way that we link our learning to one another, our learning within the subject, and also through key related concepts, the global context, the summative assessment. So it is actually at the heart of the planner, and it is at the heart of the IB itself. Okay. We also have later on after my session, we have another session that talks about tracking the ATL skills vertically and horizontally. So my colleague Pallavi is going to just put a poll up. I think it's somebody. All right. So my colleague Pallavi is going to add a poll here just so that we all have an understanding of which schools have an ATL mapping process. Like, do you have a sheet at your school where your coordinator or administrator has a holistic view of how the ATL skills are mapped? So you have yes, no, or I don't know. So go ahead and click on your choice. We'll give everybody another minute, and then Pallavi, can you show us the results of the poll? And we can have a look at that. I believe we will make these, we will be making these slides available, but I'll double check with my colleagues at Toddle.
Yes, recordings for the session will be made available, and you'll be able to access the slides through that. Nadia, I'm sharing the results of the poll for everyone.
Sure. Okay, so you have 72% say yes, 15 no, and 13 with I don't know. That's great. So let's move it forward. So we have a look at what ATLs are, how we actually place them in unit planners, their role in the unit planners, and then how we track them will happen after my session. Okay, thank you very much. All right, so again, we're looking at the terminology. What do we identify in the ATL portion of the planner? We have the category, the cluster, the strand, an objective skill, and a learning experience. I'm going to be walking you through the terminology just so that you know what is what. So obviously we have 5 different categories, as you know, you've seen earlier: communication, social, self-management, research, and thinking. And then we have the skill clusters, which are specific to the categories. So it's important to identify one of each. Okay, and then that takes you to the ATL strand itself, just so that students are well aware that we're focusing on specific strands and elements throughout the unit planner. So I guess less is more when teaching, referring to, or even embedding ATL within a unit planner. Okay, so just to give you an overview, as educators, after you've identified the category, the cluster, and the strand, you're then able to create a learning experience. So you have ATL specific learning experience, and then subject objective specific learning experiences. And that will be part 2. So if you look here, the learning experience is really embedded within the category, the cluster, and the strand. Because I'm an English teacher by nature, most of my examples are from language and literature. So here we're looking at critical thinking in particular. The strand is gather and organize relevant information to formulate an argument. And as a learning experience, I'm asking students to annotate different parts of the text and analyze traits in a main character. You know, you can do this obviously in any unit that has a novel for the language teachers here. After this, students will formulate an argument that identifies the cause of the problem in the text. So here they're gathering and organizing the information, but they're also thinking critically about those annotated parts of the text itself. So now we're looking at the second part of the session. We're looking at subject-specific objectives. Okay, so we've identified the generic ones, but now we need to dig deep into our subject-specific objectives here. All right. Yes, somebody here just posted, can you give group specific tasks for future activities? Okay. The group, okay, all right. So we have 2 more activities. We'll give you more guidance on what to do then. Thank you for your feedback. So we've identified, obviously, in part 1, the strand, gather and organize relevant information to formulate an argument. Now we're looking at subject-specific objectives. So for me, again, as an English teacher, I've identified I'm looking at analysis, and my objective strand is what you see on the screen. Analyze the content, context, language, structure, technique, and style of text and the relationships among texts. So what I'm doing here as a language and literature teacher, I'm linking actually my ATL strand to the objective, and then making it even more specific by linking the objective strand to the actual component here. I take all of that and then I create an ATL statement. I believe one group already jumped the gun and did this, but it's important that in my ATL planner, I have an ATL statement. So you have a format right in front of you that goes like this. It says, in order for students to, you plug in your strand from the objective, right? They must, or students must, and then strand from the ATL cluster. So in the blue, you'll notice the strand from the objective as identified here, right? Objective strand. And then in this color here, maybe dark red, we've identified the ATL cluster, gather and organize relevant information. So now that we've merged the subject and the ATL strand, we have a fully formulated statement. Another thing is that what we went ahead and did at Toddle was we created a video that will pretty much help you in creating an ATL statement. It takes you step by step. So I suggest that later on, Pallavi is going to show that to you. So I suggest that, again, when you're working on your MYP unit planner, to go back to these resources, a very quick video that shows you how to go ahead and plug that in. As you all mentioned in the chat, by the way, I'm sorry that my camera is off. It's because of my internet connection, but I'm going to turn it on again when we have a Q&A session. So we include the ATL elements in learning experiences and teaching strategies. We're looking at the learning process itself. Again, this is where we're including the teaching and learning journey, and we're embedding those ATL skills into our subject-specific strands, right? We're looking at explicit and implicit, and again, it is a bit detailed, but it's important that we break down the ATL skill, the category, into different portions. So we have to create learning strategies that are explicitly taught. So these are activities that are not relevant to the subject group, but support the ATL skill itself. So if I'm teaching critical thinking, maybe as an English teacher, as a language and literature teacher, maybe I can borrow an activity from the design department or from another department or something generic that will teach that critical thinking skill, but not through the actual content of the unit itself, because that's the implicit skill. I have to include those as well, obviously, for the teaching and learning journey. I have to come up with activities that are relevant to the subject group and derive from the content of the unit itself, right? Language and literature. So obviously here I'm looking at critical thinking. Implicit, I came up with by understanding and analyzing traits of different characters in the novel. Students will be engaged in a debate that will allow them to display their mastery or lack of critical thinking skills. But then I also need an explicit learning engagement. So I came up with, by reading various research articles regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, students will be learning how to gather and organize relevant information to formulate an argument. So in both examples, I'm elaborating on the element of critical thinking, but I'm just doing it differently. I'm looking at it from a subject-specific lens, like the language and literature lens, and then I'm also looking at it outside of my language and literature lens, and it could be anything related to that. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to the last activity and return for questions? All right. Again, you can go back and check out the blog. So the blog has a video, it has workbooks for you, playbooks, posters. So if you feel like you need to decorate your classroom, we got you covered. If you need subject-specific activities, we got you covered. If you're creating your unit planner, it's all there. We've put it all into one master blog. Okay. So if you look at this, we've also created subject-specific rationales and ideas where we've linked objective to the ATL skill indicator through the category, and we're giving you some ideas. We've done this for every single subject, and this will really help you organize your unit and make it creative. Pallavi, do we have the link for this?
The link is in the chat now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So here it is. If you open up that link, you'll obviously see the different ideas that stem from the subjects themselves. You're very welcome, Eliana. Right? We also have subject-specific ATL charts right there, very similar, where you download them depending on the actual subject that you're teaching.
Okay, thanks for that, Nadia. Thank you very much, all of you, for being such a fantastic bunch. You were all so participative, so collaborative. The Padlet is only a reflection of how much you all worked together today. And I'm hoping today's session was just a starting point for all of you to start exploring ATLs and embedding them in your unit planners and moving towards creating more meaningful learning experiences for your students and helping them develop their skills as we go along. There is another session that's starting in 15 minutes. This session is going to take a bird's eye view. It's going to zoom out of what Nadia talked about in this session and take it to a school-wide level. How can we map our ATL skills when we design an MYP curriculum for an entire school? So Anshu Sharma is going to be leading that session for us in the next 15 minutes, and she's going to be walking you through the process that she used as an MYP coordinator for her own school. So this one's definitely going to be super useful if you want to go in and look at how can we do wider vertical and horizontal articulation of ATLs at our schools. On that note, I want to give a big thank you to Nadia for leading such a fantastic session. Nadia, thank you ever so much. This was really, really great.